All right. Take it away, Joe.
I'm the chair, at least for the moment, of our senior tax work-off committee meeting. And I'd like to welcome you all to this meeting. We've already refused entry of one person who we think was a Zoom bomber, so could get exciting farther on down the road. We do have a quorum, do we not?
We do.
5 out of 7 is okay? Or 6 out of 7, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
6 out of 7 is great.
Yeah, that's sweet.
I guess one is everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from the last meeting that Peg sent out?
Yep.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Wait, hold it.
Oh, sorry.
Wait, there's one thing before we get there. There's one thing we need is we need a secretary for the.
There you go.
Okay, Peg, are you volunteering or?
Nope, I did it last time.
All right. Do we have a volunteer?
I'll get it out of the way.
That was my thought too.
Okay. Jay, so you're the person then.
Yep.
Thank you for doing that.
My pleasure.
Okay. Moving on to I guess this meeting, whatever time it is, 6:02 or 6:01. The meeting came to order at 6:01. Bear with me for a moment while I look for the minutes. Okay. So everyone has had an opportunity to review the minutes. Was there anything that anybody noticed require revision or anything along those lines?
No, nothing here.
Okay. The one thing I did that I wondered about was when you've got the committee members, you've got Brendan's name and it's Director COE.
Oh, did I put COE?
Council on.
COE, huh? Okay.
Nice.
Edgin.
So what we can do, Joe, is we can agree that that needs to be changed to COA, and then when we run the motion, we will run the motion of the minutes as amended, and the amended version will have the COA.
Okay. All right. So do we have any discussion about any other discussion about the minutes? Okay. In the absence of that, can I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
So moved.
I didn't recall who was that. Brendan who moved or JP?
So moved.
JP, you were first. Okay. Second.
Stanley.
Stan. All those in favor?
We need to do when you're virtual, you need to do a roll call vote. So just call each of our names and we'll vote.
Oh, okay.
Our names and say JP Kwasinski, aye.
Okay, JP, and you are an aye. Peg?
Aye.
Stan?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
And Brendan?
Aye.
Now, do I vote as well, or?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, and I vote in the affirmative as well.
Okay.
And so the motion carries, so.
As amended.
As amended, yeah.
I'll get those new versions out.
Okay, and just one other point of fact, I'm looking at the minutes that you had sent out, Peg, and it listed Jennifer as being absent. Jennifer's a standing member of the committee.
She is, and actually I'm surprised she's not here because just last week we were talking about this. So yes, she is the finance director. Well, no, she's the treasurer of the city.
City, yeah.
And she is here from a financial perspective.
Okay.
Except she's not here, so.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if the person we turned away was, it didn't seem.
She usually comes in with her name, so I'll just double check.
Okay. All right, folks. Moving right along. The and I'm basically going off of the agenda that Barbara included on the email message. Oh, speak of Jennifer, and here she is.
Hey, Jen, were your ears burning? You're muted. You're muted.
You're on mute. You're muted.
Maybe on purpose, but
It has been that kind of a day with this technical equipment for me.
oh, good.
Don't make me press
Jen,
the button.
Jen, you didn't come in with a name of like NFD 5703, whatever.
No.
Because I removed somebody from the meeting with that, so I thought that was the technical difficulties you were having. But I'm happy to hear that that wasn't me. Okay.
Okay. I
Jen,
guess.
do you know everybody here, Jen?
No. And I apologize that I couldn't make the last meeting.
Okay. Just briefly, I'm Joe Banus. I appear to be the chair for this meeting. So. Okay, who's next?
I guess
Hi,
it should be me. I'm Jay Andrzejczyk, the secretary of this meeting.
Okay. Well, it's nice to meet you all. I'm the treasurer, Jen Gallant, so I'm happy to be here.
Okay, good. We had just previously approved the minutes of the last meeting, and we're moving on to the next item on the agenda, which I guess the way Barbara had it, she said review of the Mass General laws and purpose of the committee. And what I would suggest is that we look at the purpose of the committee first. Okay, I think Peg, in your minutes the last time you said basically we're looking at the relief available to Easthampton seniors in light of anticipated property tax increases.
Yes. So
is that pretty close, or?
yeah. So, and we can decide, but I thought that the purpose of the meeting was to present a proposal to the mayor, who ultimately has the authority to either do this or not do this. So our authority ends with creating a proposal. And so the purpose of this group is to create a compelling proposal with Jen so that we understand the impacts financially to the city, predicated on how many people we think will do it and what the amount will be. And that we figure out if we want to do it as a pilot to entice and work out the bugs before we do a full-blown rollout. So in my mind, I don't know how you make that pretty words, but in my mind, that's the purpose, is to create a compelling story to give to the mayor.
Okay, other thoughts?
Well, if I can jump in, so I know Peg and JP both know this, but before coming to Easthampton, I worked in Westfield, and Westfield has a senior tax work-off program. We actually had one of the seniors in the auditor's office, which is where I worked there. I reached out to Tina Gorman, who is the administrator of the Council on Aging, and she pretty much administers the program there. And I guess like part of my my reason for reaching out to her was because it had been said in the past, through murmurings in Easthampton, that it's a senior tax work-off can be a lot of work because you have to pull taxes. You know, it's like these people are getting wages, and you know it can really be a tremendous task. And that kind of puzzled me a little because I didn't find it that difficult in Westfield, and we never took payroll taxes. So I called Tina and I said, okay, I know that we weren't doing anything wrong because we're audited by the same auditors that we have in Easthampton. And, you know, they never said, oh, you can't do that. And essentially what it is that Westfield caps the tax benefit at $500 per person. And because that's less than $600, it doesn't have to be reported on a 1099, and it doesn't have to be reported as wages on a W-2. So that's, I was going to actually, I just spoke with her today, but I'll also reach out to Tom Scanlon, who's our auditor, who again was the auditor there. I'll just verify with him that like they're not grandfathered into anything or anything like that. But Tina seemed pretty, well versed in it, and said, no, you, as long as you, if you give the maximum, then you're talking, 1,000 or 1,500 now. Yeah. So if you give the maximum, then yes, you open that up to yourselves having to be, sorry. You open that up to having to be reporting it as wages and issuing W-2s, because I said, I'm like, you didn't even issue a 1099, and she said, no, it's under $600. So we didn't have to. So
when you talk about W-2s and you're talking about reporting that income for federal purposes, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
If just one other thing is, I talked to Tina as well some months back when I started gathering information on the program, and she gave me the complete set of forms that they use in terms of how they run the program and implement it. So I think, should we put something into place, it probably will be at least, very close to what Westfield's got. So that's good.
And I mean, I can speak to it from, the side of having one of the seniors in the auditing office working for us, and it didn't tremendously task, I was the assistant auditor, but even the auditor, neither of us were overburdened with anything. I mean, the woman that we had tracked her own hours, we just signed off at, every day she left, we just signed it. And then, she would turn that into Tina once she got, I want to say it was 40 hours, and then she was done for the year. Prior to the last woman that we had a woman who did her 40 and then continued to come in just because she liked the company and liked filing for us. And we said, okay, if you want to, then no problem, So overall, it was a good experience.
And it wasn't a bear to administratively run the program.
No, I mean, Tina could speak more about the application process and filtering through, those sorts of things. But she generally would, when she would get the applications, if someone had a specific skill set that aligned them with a certain department, a little bit more than someone else, then she would, what she mainly did is she just called us and she said, okay, so I have someone new in the program this year, this is her name. She did some accounting work, blah, blah, blah. And, she expressed interest in accounting, which I do think that Tina's, application does ask like what their interests are or whatever, so that you can try to pair them somewhere, where they'll want to be. Not everybody likes accounting. And, so she took care of kind of like the matching portion of it, but then we would have the opportunity, the department heads would have the opportunity to interview.
And make the final selection, right?
Yep.
I'm just throwing documents up here during the meeting. Sorry.
Like, where did everyone go?
Where'd the other guys go?
It should be on the right-hand side of your window. But I can take it down. I'm just trying to,
Okay.
Hey, Jen, I'm sorry. You may have already said this, but what is the cutoff before people have to start filing for tax purposes?
It would be $600, because right now, if you earn $600 doing work for anyone, 600 or more, then they're supposed to issue you a 1099. That's not an instance where we would have to withhold anything from their wages. They would just be, considered doing work for us. And then we would issue a 1099. But that is, issuing 1099s is a process that our auditing department would have to undertake. And that would mean that they would have to report that as income and pay taxes on it. So
So I don't know if we kept it below that as a start for a pilot program and didn't put any stress on municipal workers to do all of this. And I would assume then we could probably have more applicants possibly if we're keeping it below that. I don't know what people's thoughts are on that.
Well, I think certainly you can have more participants and have some not only participants but slots eventually with whatever given money the city decides, if they do, how much we can afford. Can we afford 5,000, 10,000, 25,000 for the program? The one question that occurred to me is that by limiting the amount of money to, let's say, $575, for example, you have to divide that by the number of hours for minimum wage, and then you have X number of hours that could represent an hour a week, 5 hours a week, but it's not going to stretch out for the entire year for a department, for a function usually. And I think that's okay, and it's probably really okay to start that way. But just wanted to point out that.
Yeah, I'm sharing a document right now that I put together that talks about participants on the left side, the amount of the abatement on the top, and then what the total cost to the city would be. And then I have a line for the number of hours, if it's at $12.50 per hour, I don't know, we can change that, what that equates to in weeks of work if you assume that 8 hour, forget how I did it, but whatever. And then months would be 1.2 months. So it's just a way to look at it differently, kind of what you would say.
That's great.
And, some kind of things to think about as I'm remembering back. I know like in auditing, in Westfield, it didn't really matter to us what hours our person came in because of what they were doing. But there are some offices who don't want, excess foot traffic at a certain time, or if they're really busy, they just don't want to have to deal with someone asking them how to do something. So I think that one of the very important things to do would be, when department heads are informed of this, make sure they understand that it's X amount of hours total. So they probably aren't going to want to give this person a job that is indefinite. This would be a good project person, someone to catch up on filing, those sorts of things. I know that in Westfield, a lot of them volunteered and read to the children in the schools. I don't know what that's going to look like this year with the, coronavirus, but just that is something else that they did. So I think that it's just a matter of open communication so that department heads are aware of what kind of time they'll be given, and then if particular departments can only handle extra people in the office at a certain time, they need to specify that as well, before whomever, starts going through applications, because I'm sure that people will have some availability, that is restricted. So.
Has anyone reached out or spoken to a department head informally about this program and try to get a sense for, what are their concerns and whether they might be amenable to bringing somebody on board? Or is there a process that we have to follow to do that, or should we be doing that?
So I actually mentioned it at one of the mayor's leadership calls that this committee might in fact be reaching out to some of the department heads to just pick their brain. And so we can do that. We can either do it a couple of different ways. We can either invite them to this meeting, which we may get, varying degrees of success of having them come, or individually we can reach out to various department heads, have our own independent conversations with them, and then bring that back to the committee as to the appetite for it. I think you know, Jen and I were talking about this last week, Brendan, that if we did this as a pilot, we pick you. So I don't know if that would, I don't know if that would fly, but you know, that's part of the conversation is if we decide to do a pilot, where would be the best, most positively inspired area that would really want to work and make this work? Because we wouldn't want somebody who's like lukewarm to participate. And we know Brendan is all in on this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's a discussion we have to have, and a decision we need to make on how we want to figure out how we pick the brains of the department heads.
Oh.
But I also, you know, when this meeting started before everybody was here, Jay had a compelling comment, and I want to get back to it, which is we're focusing this on going to the department heads and saying, you have work, we want to slot people into the known work that you have in the city. Mm-hmm. Is this MGL, is this thing the kind of thing where a person could come to the city and go, I would be willing to donate 40 hours to the city and insert a job that we haven't thought of? Is that kind of what you were meaning, Jay? Like they present to us what they want to do.
Exactly. The model as it stands on just about any of these that I've looked at so far is, you know, we need somebody to clean toilets on Tuesdays. There's the job. And you've got someone in your community that can write a $200,000 police grant in 40 hours. And they never get the opportunity to do that because you need somebody to clean toilets on Tuesdays. So I think the opportunity risk is really the flaw with the system as it's set up now. If we copy an existing system, we can improve upon it, you know? So we could see the results from city X versus us, and then we're 10% better than them. Oh, that's great. But if we completely change where it's coming from, if the impetus is from the individual willing to volunteer, well, we could see exponential returns versus what's being done currently.
Yep, so. It's interesting.
We're talking about senior citizens too, right?
Yeah, or you know, there's a caveat in the law saying that someone can volunteer in their stead. Well, you've got a buddy who can do X, Y, or Z that's willing to put in 40 hours for you so that you get $1,500 off your tax bill. Great. You know, they just open up the floodgates to whoever can do whatever they can for the benefit of the city.
Yeah, and I want to say, I talked to, but I can't remember now. It's out near Boston. It might be on the North Shore, but a very small town. And they do have the caveat. They have approved the caveat where you can use somebody else to do the work, and that's actually been somewhat popular in that. So in other words, if we only limit it to seniors by and large may have limitations of mobility, as an example. Sure. And if they are unable to get to a place to do the job, we're automatically not including them because they can't get to City Hall or whatever. So I kind of am interested in that concept of bringing in a different kind of model, understanding that if we get too far out there, the mayor's going to be like, this is getting a little risky, I don't want to do it. So somewhere in the middle maybe is the answer, but I like that idea actually quite a bit.
Yeah. I
mean, the general law, or that chapter 59, section 5K did mention, I think it was one of the final, I think it was the final paragraph that said someone can work for, you know, a senior.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know, at the very end. So I mean, that's within the bounds. But somebody couldn't work for themselves, and not be a senior.
Right.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, it's got to be a senior who benefits.
Yep. Yeah, so if your son worked, the tax relief would go to you and not the son.
Correct.
Yeah.
And kind of to just add a little bit more to what Jay was saying, it's probably not a bad idea, and I don't know, we're kind of putting the cart before the horse here, but if we have like an application process, which obviously we will, list the departments that are interested in having someone help out so that people can, like treasurer's office auditing, that would be someone who has a financial background, but also maybe have a question right below that says, do you have any special skill sets or any ideas of how you can help or how you can, volunteer for us in a capacity that's not listed above. You know what I mean? So that we're not actually, I don't think we want to get so specific where we're putting, do you want to be filing in the treasurer's office? Check this box. No, you kind of go with like the area of finance, the area of schools, like what kind of work would they be interested in doing? And then, and then kind of have them tell us if there's something that they specialize in or that they, think could benefit more than filing.
Yep.
Jen, earlier you were saying the benefits of the $500, we don't have to do a 1099. Could you speak to the cost if we do go above that? I mean, I'm sure you generate dozens of 1099s every year, but is it 5 minutes of 1099? Is it an hour of 1099? What type of?
It's not. So, well, first, let me clarify that I don't do the 1099s in Easthampton. The auditor's office does them. And it's really, yes, we have to provide them for, certain contractors or vendors that do work for us. But it's really, I don't know the process in the system, but it's my understanding, and as it was in Westfield, we had a form, we had a program, it printed it out. The 1099 portion to me is not reinventing the wheel. Where it gets murky is if we bring these people on as employees and then start having to take money out for state withholding, federal withholding, or those. If we get too into that, then we're opening a whole can of worms that I just don't think would make the program worthwhile.
Right.
The MGL does speak to the way a person is set up and whether and how taxes are implicated. And I don't know enough about that to really speak intelligently. Have you read it, Jen, in terms of the details of the MGL?
You know what? Actually, it's funny that you say that because I was reading through it. I had read through it the other day, and then I read through it again this afternoon shortly before this call, just because I wanted to, make sure I was understanding it correctly. And I'm understanding the language to say that it should not be treated as wages.
Right.
That's for state income tax purposes. For federal income tax purposes is a separate matter.
Right. And so that's, that would be, I guess that could definitely be a conversation that I could have with our outside auditor, with Scanlon, in speaking with him about if we cap it at 500 versus if we don't, what kind of tax implications are there based on, the MGL? Because, it does, yes, like JP, like you said, it's definitely got federal implications, but to what extent and what would that cost us in terms of matching and stuff like that? It gets more complicated. So it would require more work from city employees,
Doesn't Northampton have, I want to say it's $1,000. Joe, did you reach out to Northampton? it's more than 500, I'm pretty sure. And I'm wondering if we could get with them and figure out how they do it if we decide to go with a number that's north of 500.
Northampton, as of 2014, Northampton was 1,000.
Okay, so they might be, somebody we can talk to.
Yeah,
how they manage through that.
I can reach out to their finance team. I've spoken with them, on different occasions. So I can definitely reach out and just ask them how they handle, the accounting and the payout side of it.
Great. Yeah, that'd be great, Jen. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be on a 1099. It can't be on an employee basis, just the way that the law is written. It's very clear.
Okay, was there anything else? I mean, folks took the time to go through the this chapter 59. Was there anything else that jumped out at anybody? Anything worthy of mention?
I didn't really, nothing specific jumped out, but kind of the overall takeaway that I got from it was that the program can be very flexible.
Flexible, yes.
In terms of what we set. We just have to know what we want, and we have to be confident that it's achievable and that the program itself is going to, benefit the seniors, but also, not take away from the city.
In other words, not pose an overly egregious administrative burden on people, right?
Correct. And I also think that, and like Peg was saying, it might be a good idea for you guys to talk or us, I can also, but I am a department head. So it might make sense to, talk to the department heads and just get some feedback, because it's been my experience that sometimes people, you'll have certain people that'll be like, oh my gosh, get someone in here to help me with this filing. Yes, please. Where do I sign up? And then there's going to be other people who are just going to take I don't have time to show anybody anything because I'm too busy all the time. So even though it would be helpful to have this person, I don't have time. You know what I mean? So I think that really getting some feedback from the department heads and seeing if this is, something that will be welcomed is probably the starting point, because there's really no point in pushing this if you get, if me and Brendan are the only two people who want volunteers in our offices, you know what I mean?
Totally worth it. We'll each get 20 people.
Right. Yeah, there you go. It just, to me, it makes sense to kind of get some feedback from and not even on like because we haven't nailed down like how much and what the administrative burden will be and all that. Not even speaking to that, just, hey, if you could have help doing some of the, less confidential and more office-like tasks, would that be something you'd want? Because, if you don't get a lot of good feedback and people just don't want to deal with it, I mean, it's going to be dead in the water before we even get a proposal to the mayor.
That would sort of argue for, doing a pilot program where if you can just get a couple of departments where people seem, where it seems like it could be a quick win, then you run it as a pilot and see where it works, but you can also change where it doesn't work. But it also gives the other departments that didn't participate, gives them an opportunity to see, where it actually, produced benefits for the departments that did
Right.
play.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion here? I guess, where do we go? We've had a pretty good talk. What do we do next?
My bias is toward a plan, like a blueprint plan of this happens, then this happens, then this happens, and these are the people that are going to make those things happen. So it may behoove us to create kind of a framework of what are the things we have to do next and who and how are we going to do that. So talking to the department heads, we all agree that's a great idea. Who's going to do it? Where do we get the list of department heads? How do we want to divvy it up? And we want to have a substantially similar conversation. And if that's true, what kind of questions do we all want to be asking each department head? So that's just.
Is that something that would come out of the minutes from the discussion that we've just had?
It would be something that we would all have to, so as an example, we could, if one of the items is this committee reach out to the department heads. Well, behind that is we have to know who the department heads are, and we have to know who Joe is going to call versus who Peg is going to call, and we need to map that out. And so we can do one of 47 things. We can either agree that that's a thing we need to do, and then go off and create a plan separately and bring it back to the committee and say, what do you think about this plan? Or we just sit here right now and say, let's pick 5 department heads and assign people to call them before the next meeting.
Okay. I think that's sort of the shorter version of it, but I think, we're not a congressional committee, so once we have to run it by our outside counsel, let's just do what you just suggested.
Yep.
I wonder if it might make sense before we talk to the critical folks in our own community that will be yay or nay, or maybe I'm thinking of the too busy, so I don't have time for this. We don't need it. It's not going to help me. To really, if it makes any, and maybe it makes sense to do that exploration with the department heads, but I somehow imagine us kind of like each taking a city somewhere that does the program, maybe on the other side of the state where we're unknown, and asking the questions and going through each department. We're going through every job description that is there, to look at the program, kind of tear it apart and say, all right, in the library, this is how people have been affected. This is what has been effective in this department or in that department, and then kind of coalesce that information among all of us, and then reach out to our own departments once we have kind of an idea of how other programs are operating. I don't know if that makes any sense. I think then we become a little better informed as to how other communities are dealing with this, unless people feel really comfortable talking to the department heads and going to take. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I do agree that having those conversations is important. I'll admit that I've had a few of those with some of the other municipalities, and there might be some stuff out on the Google Drive. But it's not a bad idea, because I think if you talk to some of these other municipalities, you can get a real sense of their pain versus their benefit. And you will also see that municipality to municipality is very different. So while one municipality may be like, oh my God, it was an administrative nightmare, but we're doing it, another one is like, best thing that's ever happened to our community. So we have to take everything with a grain of salt as well.
I certainly would be willing to take a community or two and try to pick that apart and bring it back to a future meeting. I don't know if if that would be helpful, and we all kind of report back and then go reach out to our own people.
I also was wondering if it might be a good idea to have an understanding as to how many hours or how much money, if that we're willing to put forward with this pilot project, because I think the question is going to be like, well, how many hours do you need someone to, fill here in my department? And if we don't have the answer to that, and where, it's not clearly defined, that might not be helpful for department.
Well, it's my understanding that generally, you know, it can be up to 4 hours, but yeah, I mean, that's not a bad thing to kind of nail down. The thing is, it's hard for us because it's like chicken and egg, you know what I mean? Like we're kind of at this point where it's like, well, how much can we spend? Well, what do we want to spend? And you know, what can we, how many people can we bring in and make it worthwhile? So I guess we just have to kind of make a decision on that. And
Jen, is there a way, you know, when you're calculating the tax levy and you're doing all the numbers that make me hurt, is there a way for you to run those numbers and from a hypothetical perspective say, okay, we need to hit the tax levy of $1 million, whatever that is, and that's going to cost everybody whatever percent it costs. If we take out of there X, and is X $35,000, is X $150,000, somewhere in there is the sweet spot that you can, that's palatable to you and that would be palatable to the mayor, because the rest of the community is going to be subsidizing this, because the levy is the levy. And so if we have 70 people at $500, that's $35,000 that everybody else has to pay. So what is that impact to everybody else? If we have 70 people and we have $1,500, that's $105,000 everybody else has to pay. So if we could have just like pick 2 points, data points, and just see, so we even know what we're talking about. If it's $1 extra per person, maybe people won't mind, although I don't even think that would be palatable, but it's going to matter because people will have to pay it, and there won't be an appetite if it's a big number.
No, I can definitely.
Pilot program, I think we ought to be targeting somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000 for the pilot program.
Yep.
And I think Jen can calculate that out eventually and let us know. 15, it's this. At 25, it's this. At 35, it's that. And beyond that, I think we're pushing it.
Yeah.
I agree.
You can probably hide $15,000 or $30,000 somewhere. I didn't mean hide. That's not what I meant.
Well, we can probably find it somewhere, yes.
Yes, let's find it. Now, this just came to me, and I don't know that it's even a possibility, but I do know that there are some grants available where they're specifically for testing out new programs, like, you know, specifically, okay, we want to launch this, but, you know, we don't want to dive all in. I don't know if the senior tax work-off program would qualify under that, but I can definitely look, because if we could do a pilot program under a grant, then it would be no cost to the residents, and it would just be a matter of determining the appetite for the program from the standpoint of the department heads and from the seniors. So I can at least look. I mean, the worst that's going to happen is it doesn't qualify, but you know, if we call it a pilot program, which is what we're talking about, there's a possibility.
That sounds great.
You can check that out then? You can check that?
Yes.
Take a look at that. Thanks. Okay. I guess just one other comment that I wanted to make about the Chapter 59, Section 5K, and I think Jen's already said it, but there's a lot of flexibility here in sort of setting this thing up so that it works the way we want it to work. So it's not something that seemed to be very strict or rigid, so we can tailor it to our own situation. So that, to me, that was a positive thing about the law itself. Okay, any further comments?
I just want to say on the to define a plan and timeline for the committee, I think it's really important that we do get that done as quickly as possible. As far as implementation goes, Jen or Peg, or JP, if we by December have a proposal for the pilot to give to the mayor, we're looking at fiscal year 2022, like next July it would actually be implemented. Okay, so but the budgeting really takes place in March-ish, so we really need to have this flushed out and ready to present January, the latest. Is that fair?
I guess what level of detail would we need to have?
Well, if we're going to have it as a pilot program, if we're looking at like 15 participants, I think really we'll need to define the dollar benefit, right? I say we go with the max, the 1,500, because that way, if there are stumbling blocks that we run into with the 1099s, at least we flush that out right up front. And at that point, if we say, no, that's too much work, we can scale it back. It's always easier to scale something back than to have everybody love it and then say, oh, here's a whole bunch of junk you got to deal with now. That's no good.
Right.
I think that timeline is pretty accurate, Jay. I think we're talking January. We would have to. It would have to be incorporated into the budget. All the numbers, whatever. I think we might, if we get a pilot department head to say, I'll be that department head. We may have to have a couple of sample job descriptions, kind of fleshed out application process that we can say, easy peasy, it's going to work this way. And then to your point, the dollar amount, and we could cap it. We could say after 10 applicants during the pilot, that's it for the pilot. Like the first 10 in are it. And then we'll get back to you next year if this works, kind of thing. Or later in the year, however we want to do it. But yeah. Because you can do that. You can cap it at the number of participants.
Yeah, and I would say if we're going to do a pilot, let's cap it at a number like 10. And then also, as opposed to letting people write their own job description and what they want to do, I think we should start off with something that's a little more directive, where we have, written job descriptions. And, again, that's exactly how Westfield played it, where they had written job descriptions. Now, I talked to Ludlow, and the folks at Ludlow who run their program, they don't have job descriptions. They leave it up to wherever they place people to sort of, in effect, it's an informal job description. But that means, that shows you the program can be, you can either do it like formally or very informally. And personally, I think I would be more comfortable trying to do a pilot with something that was a little more structured. Yeah. I mean, not at some future point, if this thing gets rolling, then you can sort of allow people more flexibility in terms of like writing their own job. But I think for the sake of the pilot, it's got to be more structured.
Yeah, and I think if we're going maximum benefit or maximum amount, it would be a really good idea to have it structured and have some type of administrative oversight, because people are going to want to know what's happening with their taxpayer dollars. They're not going to want to think that someone's, doing nothing and then getting this, tax assistance,
Right. Yeah, that actually is a good point as well. Like the more we formalize the program initially, the better received it may be, hopefully, by the residents who aren't seniors, who don't qualify.
I still think it's going to be critical for us to put on that, hey, what else can you do line on the application, because
Well, it may very well be possible to have the kind of a blend where you have 10 positions, 7 or 8 of them fully defined, here they are, and we reserve a couple of slots for something that might come along that makes great sense for everybody.
Yep.
I think it's good to have that kind of flexibility built in, at least one or two positions. So I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Okay, Egg, what are your suggestions? Where do we go from here?
I'm going to the Cape. I'm not sure.
Cape of Good Hope.
I think what I like JP's idea. I think Joe, you and I have probably had the most conversations with other municipalities, so we could, it's out on the share drive, I think, but I'd be happy to like put the cities that we've already talked to, and then somewhere there is a list. JP, did you have the list that said the municipalities that had it already? Did we have a list like that?
That was the CPA. I had researched the CPA, who had the CPA, who had the senior exemptions for the CPA. Okay. So that was a separate list. Sorry.
All right. Well, I will take the task of seeing if I can find out what municipalities have it. And then I can get that to you guys. And then if we want, we can just pick two off the list and just tell everybody, I'm going to go talk to Fitchburg. And,
post the list that everybody could jump on and say, I'm putting my name next to that one. So
yeah, on a Google Doc or something.
Oh, yeah. Good, yeah. Google Doc would be perfect.
Yep. Okay. All right. I think that's a great idea, and then bring that feedback back, and then in our next meeting, the next meeting would be, okay, how do we want to structure this? Who do we want to talk to within our city? And then Jen, even now, you could run numbers and see what.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'll try to get some, ballpark figures, so that we can have an idea of what effect, how much we give and how many participants we have has. And then I will also, between now and our next meeting, I will reach out to Northampton and find out how they do their accounting for this. I will also talk to our outside auditors, Scanlon, and just kind of pretty much discuss the same thing as I plan to discuss with Northampton. Just make sure that, if we stay under 600, is that okay? We don't have to do anything, and then 600, we're gonna 1099 anything above. And I will also look at the grants page that I'm thinking of that maybe can help us out. So I'll get you guys answers on that for our next meeting.
I was just writing down all the tasks that you have, Jen, so I'm happy that you came tonight.
Did I get them all?
Yeah, and you'll be here for the next meeting, Jen?
Yes.
Folks, if I can just raise one more point, because I know we're coming up against our time limit. Let's talk just real quick about the timeline. So the implementation of this would be on July 1st of next year. And so...
No sooner than, let's put it that way. No sooner than. So it could happen in August of next year. It's just, it can't happen until that fiscal year starts.
Right. So we need a fairly fleshed out proposal document or project plan by, say, December or January?
Yeah. I think we need it by November to really.
That's way too early, don't you think, Jim?
If you fleshed it out, then the actual writing can occur in December, and the presentation fully done to the mayor Christmas time or whatever. Everybody's in a good mood, hopefully, and
yeah, but will people be at work?
The mayor's going to be sending out her letters, I believe, in November to the departments and saying, I'm just going to be sitting down with you shortly. We're going to have discussions regarding, please submit a budget, and all that process is happening in November. You want to be on the table by that point, so it's kind of like part and parcel of the process, in my opinion, so that you're not running in January and now everybody's submitted their budgets and everybody's 10% over, et cetera, and now there's no room for anything. You kind of figure, here's the plan, really looks good. It's kind of all fleshed out. Here it is. Here's the applications. And so that's why I'm saying November, and not to push us, but to kind of.
I think that makes sense, JP. I think it's probably best if we can at least nail down the specifics of what we're doing by then. And then, like you said, after, say, we have a November meeting, then someone can take it and kind of write it up as a proposal with all the bells and whistles, and, so that it's going through the process well before we're sitting down, because we sat down this year with the department heads in February, the mayor and I and Val, to go through budgets. So they were already, they already had what they wanted in their budget mapped out by February. So the mayor will want to know if this expense is going to also have to be included. So I think that timeline works.
Okay.
And if I could just circle back really quickly, I love the idea of reaching out to certain communities that already have this program, but are we specifically honing in on the finance aspect of it? Is that what we're really trying to isolate? Or are we just trying to look for, in general, like what some pitfalls are with programs? So like for me, if I reached out to Northampton, would you want me talking to the COA to see it from their perspective? Or do you want me just to focus in on the finance part of it?
I think it's the pitfalls and the challenges that we want to flesh out. The finances are what they are. I mean, it's a number, and it's good. That's going to be unique to each municipality, whether they can, so for me, it's more how the process is working. Did they come up with something that works really well and that they want to share with us? Or did they run into something they weren't expecting so that we don't have to run into the same thing?
Yeah, big problem that they encountered that, if they tell us about it, we won't make the same mistake they did.
I'm thinking of like great job descriptions. Maybe there's some things that certain communities are doing. So, wow, we have somebody clean the toilets and do the fire. But you know what? Here's what we did. And it was really exciting. It'd be nice to be able to throw a couple of those on the table along with the general run-of-the-mill material. So I see kind of as I'm going to proceed, I'm going to be asking kind of various departments, looking at the whole program to get a good sense. And if anyone else has any ideas about questions, we should ask them. But I think, Peg, what have been the problems? How was it working? What was the process? How was it originally perceived? Was everybody aboard? How did it progress? Those are the kinds of things that I think will help us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so there's a list of all the 139 towns and cities that have this program?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think there is. I think you have to accept the MGL, and once you do that, I think it becomes public record. But I'll look into it. I may come up dry. I don't know.
I guess let me leave this before we wrap it up. Right now, we're having meetings once a month. Should we be having them a little more frequently, maybe every third week? Let me leave that with you guys. Okay, I think we're right about there, aren't we? In fact, we may be over already.
It's all right. I mean, it won't hang up on us.
Oh, okay.
You won't get booted?
All right. Other comments?
Well, it kind of in what you were saying about the meetings, and I'm going to say this for purely selfish reasons, but I'm thinking maybe we have our next one in August, and being like that this is summer vacation time, that sort of thing, maybe then in August, once we get to where we have this information gathered and we kind of know like our next steps, then maybe we should meet more often, to kind of, stay on track with our timeline. But that's just my opinion. If you guys want to meet more than that in the summer, that's fine. I'm not going anywhere. So.
That sounds reasonable to
That's a
everybody?
good plan.
Yeah, so meet on August 20th as planned. And then predicated on what we have learned between now and then, we may have 2 meetings in September, or we may condense it so that we end up having more meetings before November, is what you're saying.
Like every third week or something like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense.
Wonderful. Anyone have anything further? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Wait, Jen had something.
I just wanted to ask Peg, can you send me the link? Was it whomever sent it out? I'm sorry, to the Google Drive, please, because I did have it and I saved it, but this is my laptop and I want to make sure I can access it. Okay.
I will.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Stan, second. All those in favor? Do we need to call the roll again, or?
Technically, yes, but we can raise our hands. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Opposed? No? All right, thanks, folks. Have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.